All right, what is going on, guys? Happy Sunday. We've got the NFL here, so I'm going to walk through each game, tell you if there's a bet I like or a player prop. Before we do that, we'll talk about the recap from today. So in college, we did pretty good. We went 4-2 on the college plays I gave out today. Buffalo plus 10.5. That was easy money. They won by like 20. Huskies money line just looked like crap. Took an L there. UAB and Army under 55.5. I said it was going to be pretty tight. It was 54. So we checked that box. Bowling Green scored very early on in the game. Didn't score the rest of the game. Weird game. So we took an L there. Western Michigan minus 9.5. They won by 10. And then San Diego State versus Wyoming over 42.5. They hit that very, very early in the third quarter. So that was a super easy cash. I also gave out 6 leans on the bigger games. We went 3-3. We had Mississippi State plus 33.5. Good to go there. Florida versus Tennessee under 56.5. Easy cash there. Ole Miss versus LSU. We had LSU. Hard to play in LSU at night, and it was a hell of a game. Nice little touchdown pass there at the very end. Quite a field goal by Ole Miss. That dude has an absolute leg. And then LSU throws a TD to win it. So that was a hell of a game. OSU and Oregon, I told you, very biased. I was going OSU. They should have won. Terrible clock management by Will Howard. Stanford versus Notre Dame. Stanford just looked like crap. Same thing with Oklahoma. Texas thumped them. So, yeah, overall, not too bad. Not bad at all. We'll take that. Ended up being up about close to 2 units. So, it's always a good day. But without further ado, let's get into these football games. We're starting in London. Early game. So if you're going to bet that game, you got to get it in early. Jacksonville Jaguars versus the Chicago Bears. I don't bet London games if I can avoid it. That said, there's a lot of bets I actually like in this game in terms of props. The Jags are favorited, which throws me for a loop because it doesn't compute with me. I would just assume the Bears would be. So I don't want to bet on a team in this. That's weird. You're traveling over several time zones. It's weird on your body. You don't know how they're going to react. So I'm going to avoid taking a winner. I would have a slight lean towards the under 44.5. A couple of props I do like in this game is Caleb Williams over 3.5 rushing attempts. He is over this in every game except one. He's gone 5 rushing attempts like clockwork, except one game this year. One of my favorite props today is Etienne over 9.5 rush attempts. Doesn't really make sense to me, right? Unless they're just going to run Tank Bigsby a ton. But I know Etienne's banged up a little bit with his shoulder, but he is supposed to be fully active, ready to go. So over 9.5 rushing attempts, I do like that line, unless something comes out that he's going to have limited playing time or something along those lines. So that's what I like in that game. All right, Texans and the Patriots. Drake May going to be making his first start. What do we got? I don't know. We've got a very low over-under, pretty common with the Patriots and their lack of offensive abilities, over 37.5. Now the Texans they have Mixon back, but Nico Collins is on IR. So we'll have to see kind of what this passing attack looks like. But you got Drake May making his first start. I know it's at home. It's going to be a lot of pressure on him. I think this guy is going to be decent. I just don't think it's going to be tomorrow. Or today, I guess I should say. Give me Houston minus 6.5 in this game. One of the props I really like, there's actually 2, but the one I like the most is Joe Mixon over 13.5 receiving yards. This guy can catch and he can run, so he is over this line in a decent amount of games this year. So I do like that. I also like CJ Stroud over 8.5 rushing yards. I do think he's going to have to scramble out of the pocket. They have a good D. That's kind of New England's calling card. He is over this in, I want to say, well over half of his games. So there's a good chance this hits. He's over in 3 of 5, I believe, this year. So that was one that stood out to me that I liked. All right, next game on the card. Another one that's really weird to me. Tampa Bay Saints. Carr's out with an oblique injury. You've got Spencer Rattler, the former Gamecock, coming in to make his first start. 3.5. That's real light. Yeah, I mean, I can't pass it up. Bucs minus 3.5. I guess if you want to buy down a half a point of juice there, I would almost look to ladder this play. Maybe go Bucs minus 5.5, something like that. It's a really weird line for a rookie QB. Yeah, it just doesn't make sense to me. So I love it. Give me Bucs minus 3.5. All right, Colts and the Titans. Weird game. Anthony Richardson, AR supposed to be playing. Pittman's out, sounds like for multiple weeks. Jonathan Taylor's out, so Trey Sermon will be the running back again this week. Should get a pretty decent workload. I did look at the Sermon over 10.5 receiving yards. It's just so favored to go under. It's kind of weird though. Without Pittman, I feel like he's going to be dumping it down more. That or he's going to be rushing. So maybe look at AR rushing yards. I just can't trust him to stay healthy. So really don't want to pick anything with them in terms of, I mean, I guess I would lean Colts money line. The only prop I like in this game is Nick Folk over 1.5 field goals. That's about it, right? I'll trust Nick Folk to kick some field goals. So I think Levis can move the ball a little bit. He's got all the weapons in the world with Pollard and Tyjae Spears and Hopkins and Ridley. He's just terrible. So, but it's Titans at home too. They are a little better at home. D tends to be a little tighter, so that's why I lean more towards Nick Folk kicking 2 field goals. It's just an ugly game. Aside from Nick, I'm not going to touch that game. All right, now we've got the Cardinals and the Packers. So this should be a pretty damn good game. Should be a lot of offense is what I'm banking on in this one. I like the over 47.5. You could also look at Jordan Love over half an interception. I think it's not too bad. It's like minus 130, and he's thrown a pick in his last like 4 games. So there's some good value there. Player prop that I really like in this game is Josh Jacobs over 67.5 rush yards. This team doesn't do a good job of stopping the run. So I think they're giving up roughly 119, 120 yards a game. They're the 4th worst team in terms of rushing yards allowed. So I'm sorry, I think that number is actually like 167 something. So they don't do a good job of stopping the rush. So I do like Jacobs to go over 67.5 rush yards. I like him for an anytime TD. I think that's good. James Conner could be another anytime TD candidate. I did look at James Conner's longest run. I wasn't opposed to that. It's 15.5. He's gone over that 3 of the last 4. So that's a possibility if he can break one off. But to me, I just really like the over in this game. So that would probably be my best play, and then prop will be Josh Jacobs over 67.5 rush yards. Next game on the card is going to be the Browns and the Eagles. If it's Brown, flush it down. This team's bad. Now, what are we going to get out of the Eagles? So I believe we've got A.J. Brown back. We've got Devontae Smith back. So the gang's back together, right? So Hurts has his whole arsenal to work with now. Line is minus 8.5. Browns suck. Like we all know that. Deshaun Watson is probably the worst deal in the history of football. Potentially, I don't know. Everybody's gonna call me a Browns hater. Yeah, I kind of am. I'm from Ohio. I'm a Bengals fan. You can rag on me. It's fine. Anyway, I don't want to touch this game. Eagles minus 8.5 would be, I guess, where I would go with that, but. I want to see how Jalen Hurts plays. It's just 2 teams that have just not been playing well. And the Browns can just sometimes, out of nowhere, play phenomenal. So, could this be one of those times? Yeah, potentially. I'm just going to fade it. There's a lot of games today. We don't have to force anything. Moving on. Commanders and the Ravens. This should be a good game. All right, this is a tough one, right? Jaden Daniels going up against Lamar. Oh, man, it's tough. It's like you're either one side or the other. You either take Baltimore minus 6.5 or you're taking Washington money line at plus 260. I think either is doable. I can see Daniels coming in having just a wonderful game. He's got a 77% completion percentage. I do think Brian Robinson's hurt, so you're gonna have, you're not gonna have him. But maybe that's a good time to look at a Jaden Daniels touchdown or look at somebody else, Austin Eckler, somebody like that. Obviously, Derrick Henry is always going to be a good candidate for an ATD. But yeah, I think it goes kind of two ways here. You're taking Baltimore with the spread at 6.5, or you're going Washington money line. Fade for me. I'm just going to enjoy watching this game. Should be some really good football there. All right, Chargers and the Broncos. Another game I have absolute no interest in touching. If I had a lean here, Broncos money line, I mean, it's just not a good game. Over is 35.5. I don't want to touch it. You can take Denver +3. Kind of like how Bo Nix is progressing week to week. The defense has been really solid. Yeah, it's just a bit of a coin flip to me, in my opinion. All right, Steelers and the Raiders. Other line that doesn't make sense, right? Gardner Minshew's not starting. Aiden O'Connell's playing. No Devontae Adams. Yeah, I'm really confused. I mean, do I think Aiden O'Connell's going to be the offensive savior that sparks this team? No, absolutely not. Yeah, I can't trust it, right? Justin Fields is starting. Will he finish the game as the starter? I don't know. Russell Wilson is healthy and could play. So there could be some variance, right? Fields could have a terrible first drive, first half, first quarter, and all of a sudden Russell Wilson comes in. Wouldn't shock me. But I don't see an avenue here where we don't take the Steelers at -3 in this spot. I know the Raiders played a very good game against the Ravens. I think it's more the Ravens just didn't play good than that the Raiders played exceptionally. So, like I said, don't trust Aiden O'Connell. I don't trust any of their weapons. Amir White's a terrible running back. They can't run the ball. I think O'Connell's not a great quarterback. So I don't really see a reason to not take the Steelers here. I think whether it's Fields or if Wilson comes in, they should have a pretty decent day. I believe Warren's not playing again, so we're going to have Najee Harris as your primary back, but I like Najee against this team. I think he does pretty good. He's a north to south runner. Should do okay. So give me the Steelers -3. Really like that play. All right, next game, Detroit and Dallas. This should just be a slugfest on paper. There should be a lot of points put up here by both of these offenses. We've seen the Cowboys at times just have a complete inability to stop any team from scoring. And Detroit's defense is it's getting better, right? You've got Aiden Hutchinson, who's an absolute beast, but they've got a vulnerable secondary. So to me, it just equals points here. I think Dak has an okay day. I would lean Lions, but I would just rather go over 52.5. I just think we end up slugging it out here. Goff and Dak just kind of slinging it down the field. I want to say Dak's pass attempts is like 38.5, so pretty damn high, but it would not shock me if he went over that, to be honest. I think he was at, 51 last game or the game before, so he's gone over that line in the past 2 games. He's a slinger. They really don't have much of a run game with Rico and Zeke, so really doesn't have much of a choice there. So give me the over 52.5 as my best bet in that game. And then we've got 2 more on the card here. We've got the Falcons and the Panthers. Give me the Panthers money line. I'm just playing. No way in hell I'm taking the Panthers money line. Give me Falcons. Best bet here, -6. Not a lot of props I like in this game. I don't trust the red rifle, old Andy Dalton. He's just a bad quarterback at the end of the day. Probably better than Bryce Young, but still not great. You know, they've just got subpar everywhere. So I think the Falcons should be able to come in. It's just kind of like it's a letdown spot for them, though. It's one they're supposed to win big. So do they? That's a question mark. But taking a -6, there's just way too good a value there. So Atlanta -6 in this spot. Last game on the card we're going to talk about. We're going to save Monday night for tomorrow. So last game on the card is Cincinnati Bengals, New York Giants. Rain in the forecast. Do I trust Danny Dimes? Absolutely not. I think he probably just has his normal game. You got to stop his legs, right? Keep him from running. Bengals are vulnerable to that. You're not going to have Singletary, so they're going to have Taylor, I believe, is the running back who's going to be in. Although he did really good last week, so probably has a decent day. The Bengals, defensively have been quite poor. They haven't really been able to stop anybody. But Burrow played a stellar game last week. I think the offense is starting to click. We're seeing him and Jamar kind of click together a little bit. T. Higgins back. Asiavo, I can't remember his name. something like that. He's been doing pretty good as that third receiver, especially in the red zone. They really haven't implemented Gesicki as much as I thought they would, but I mean they are clicking. Zach Moss has been doing pretty good. Chase Brown, they've got a nice little 1-2 combination there. So I don't really see a spot to not take the Bengals at 3.5. Maybe I buy down the juice and play them at -3. It's a Sunday night game, so I'll definitely be playing it. So I'd probably buy the half point and go Cincinnati -3, but would want to keep an eye on the weather in that situation. So that is the list of games. What are we giving out for best bets today? I'm glad you asked. So these are the straights I like. I bolded and highlighted in red the ones that I like the most. But really, I mean, I wouldn't have put them on here if I didn't like them. So Texans -6.5. There's just some concerns, right? Nico was such a big piece, right? Now you've got to go after Stephon Diggs. So I just want to see how that looks for a game, but I'm really not too concerned about them beating New England. Bucs -3, like I said, just doesn't make sense to me. Spencer Rattler making his first start. It's just such an absolute weird line. Arizona Green Bay over 47.5 should just be a lot of points scored in that one. Steelers -3 again. Love that line. I just don't think the Raiders and O'Connell are the saviors here. Dallas Detroit over 52.5. Falcons -6 going up against the Carolina and the Red Rifle. That is Andy Dalton. Prop leans I like. You guys can read the list. I won't go through every single one, but the ones I do like, Chase McLaughlin over 1.5 field goals for Tampa Bay. New Orleans still has a good defense. I think Baker should have a good day. Obviously, he's got weapons. He's got Godwin. He's got Evans, right? He has a lot of weapons to choose from. You got Bucky Irving, who's been kind of standing out. Deontay Swift over 13.5 rush attempts, so that's the early London game. That's at -120. I do think Chicago has to run the ball, and the Jags are vulnerable to it, so just kind of makes sense on this play. He has gone over this line. I think he had 15 and 18 attempts his previous 2 games, so we are starting to see them implement the rushing game a little bit more and having some success. It's kind of nice to see Swift actually pick up some yards. We already talked about Etienne over 9.5 rush attempts, just very low line. I just don't know what that work share is going to look like with Tank Bigsby, considering that he does kind of have a little bit of a shoulder issue. And then we already talked about Caleb Williams over 3.5 rush attempts. I love this play. It's just super juiced at -155. If there's some type of morning SGP that comes out, some type of boost or something for that game, that's definitely one that I'll be throwing in there. Josh Jacobs over 67.5 rush yards. Man, I said I wasn't going to talk about all of them, and we just started talking about all of them. I'm going to move past those. All right, Mixon, we already talked about that one. I like his receiving. And then Zach Moss over 15.5 receiving. He's done a great job receiving. He's been well over this line the past 2 games. I want to say he's at 23 and 31. So he's eclipsing that. We've really started to see him take more of the workload that Chase Brown had very early in the season. So I do love the spot, especially if it's going to be rainy weather. We should see more checkdowns. That means Zach Moss gets more involved. So that is going to do it for me for the NFL plays. We've got MLB coming out tomorrow, so I will be doing my usual MLB video for the Mets and the Dodgers. Appreciate you guys tuning in. If you haven't yet, give the video a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel. We're pushing towards 400 subscribers now, and I'll catch you in the MLB video.